The Grand Galactic Council chamber was as usual a perfect example of how to waste spectacular architecture on bureaucracy. Tall crystalline spires stretched up toward a transparent dome that revealed the swirling purple nebula beyond, while thousands of floating platforms arranged in concentric circles held representatives from every known spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. Well, almost every civilization. Ambassador Krix-T-Nine, deputy sub-chair of the Committee for Membership Affairs, found himself staring at the empty platform again. It had been empty for as long as anyone could remember, which was odd because someone had clearly gone to the trouble of installing it. The platform bore the designation Sol-3 in the standard galactic script, along with some rather nice decorative patterns that someone in maintenance kept polishing for reasons unknown. Order, order, droned High Chancellor Vex-6, their tentacles waggling in the traditional gesture of bureaucratic authority. The Council will now hear the annual report on membership status. Krix suppressed a groan. The annual membership report was typically an exercise in noting that absolutely nothing had changed, followed by scheduling another meeting to discuss why nothing had changed, which would then be postponed indefinitely. He began his standard presentation. Honored representatives, Krix adjusted his universal translator to add just the right touch of boredom to his tone. As of this cycle, the Galactic Council maintains full representation from all 1,247 recognized spacefaring civilizations, with the following exceptions. The Zerlks Collective, who are currently experiencing technical difficulties due to accidentally evolving into pure energy. A few chuckles rippled through the chamber. The Zerlks were notorious for such mishaps, the quantum consensus of Betelgeuse-9, who are simultaneously present and absent due to an unfortunate experiment with probability mechanics, and Krix paused, his eye stalks swiveling toward that empty platform again. And the curious case of Sol-3, also known as Earth, which continues to maintain an empty seat despite being, well, nobody quite seems to remember why they have a seat in the first place. This was not strictly speaking part of the standard report, but Krix had been staring at that empty platform for over 30 cycles now, and something about it had begun to nag at him in a way that even his species' legendary bureaucratic indifference couldn't quite suppress. Point of order, called out Representative Mr. Ixil of the Silicon Concordat, their crystalline form catching the light. I believe Earth was granted membership during the Great Expansion period, approximately 3,000 cycles ago. That's incorrect, countered Ambassador Zen of the Hive Diplomatic Corps. The seat was clearly installed during the Reform era, only 1,200 cycles passed. I have records indicating, began another representative, but they were quickly drowned out by a cascade of contradictory claims, each citing different periods and reasons for Earth's membership status. Krix watched in fascination as the Council descended into chaos, which for a galactic governing body meant strongly worded diplomatic notes and passive-aggressive metadata tagging. What fascinated him wasn't the disagreement itself, that was standard procedure, but rather the way every single claim seemed simultaneously convincing and obviously wrong. High Chancellor Vex-6's tentacles writhed in frustration. Ambassador Krix, as this falls under your committee's purview, you will investigate this irregularity and report back to the Council. Of course, High Chancellor, Krix replied automatically, before his brain caught up with his mouth. Wait, what? But it was too late. The motion had already been logged, filed and archived in triplicate. Krix found himself staring at the empty platform with a new sense of unease. Something very strange was going on with Earth, and now he had to figure out what it was. He had a feeling he wasn't going to like the answer. I'm assigning Lieutenant Pendra to assist you, announced Director Quix of the Bureau of Investigations, not bothering to look up from their quantum tablet. Try not to break the space-time continuum, the paperwork is atrocious. Krix stared at the young officer standing at attention beside him. Lieutenant Pendra was your typical Enforcement Division rookie, perfect posture, immaculate uniform, and an expression that suggested they still believed in things like efficiency and clear answers. Their bright blue scales hadn't even started to fade into the bureaucratic gray that marked veteran officials. Sir, Pendra's tail twitched with barely contained enthusiasm. I've already begun preliminary research into Earth's membership status. The archives are peculiar. Peculiar how? Krix asked, already dreading the answer. Well, sir, according to the primary database, Earth's membership was approved on 7 different dates by 12 different councils, none of which ever existed. The supporting documentation appears to be written in a language that won't be invented for another 1,000 years. And every time I try to access the coordinate data, my terminal starts playing something called Never Gonna Give You Up on repeat. Krix's eye stalks drooped. Show me. They made their way to the archives, a vast complex of quantum servers and crystalline memory matrices that stored the collective knowledge of the galaxy, or at least, that's what it was supposed to do. Mostly it stored an infinite variety of contradictory forms, all filed under miscellaneous. Here's what happens, Pendra said, accessing their terminal. Watch the screen when I search for Earth's coordinates. The holographic display flickered, and a strange melody filled the room. A bipedal creature with peculiar fur on its head began moving in a rhythmic pattern that made Krix's inner ears ache. Fascinating, Krix muttered. The database isn't corrupted, it's being actively redirected. But that's impossible without level 7 security clearance. Sir, Pendra's voice had taken on an odd tone. I think you should see this. I managed to intercept some broadcasts from the Sol system. The screen changed to show various images of Earth and its inhabitants. Krix watched in growing confusion as humans casually violated multiple laws of physics, all while apparently being completely unaware they were doing so. Are they using primitive chemical rockets to achieve space flight? Krix asked in disbelief. Yes, sir, and somehow it works. They're also splitting atoms for power generation. But that's insane. The math doesn't. Wait, are they containing plasma with magnetic fields? Apparently, sir, and there's more. According to these broadcasts, they achieved faster than light travel 3 cycles ago, by accident. Krix felt his primary heart skip a beat. By accident? How do you accidentally discover FTL travel? According to this report, a graduate student was trying to make a more efficient coffee maker, and things got weird. Pendra's scales had taken on a distinctly pale hue. That's not possible, Krix stated firmly. The unified laws of physics clearly state that FTL travel requires precise calculations, massive energy arrays, and at least 3 subcommittee approvals. Humans appear to have skipped the approval process, sir. They just did it. Krix watched the screen in horror as a human casually explained how they had accidentally ripped a hole in space-time while trying to reduce their morning coffee preparation time. The human seemed more concerned about their ruined coffee maker than the fundamental laws of reality they had just casually violated. Lieutenant, Krix said slowly, I believe we need to conduct a field investigation, plot a course for the nearest human space station, and maybe bring some coffee. I have a feeling we're going to need it. Pendra nodded, their tail now completely still in a way that suggested they were suppressing pure terror. Sir, should we file a risk assessment form? Lieutenant, I don't think there's a form for this. Not yet, anyway. The truth about Earth, as Krix and Pendra were discovering, was far worse than anyone could have imagined. They sat in their observation vessel, hidden behind a cloaking field that humans would probably bypass by accident if they ever bothered to look for it, watching the feed from their surveillance drones. That's the third impossible thing I've seen them do today, Pendra said, making another note in their report. They're using nuclear fusion to heat water, just to make steam to turn turbines. The energy conversion rates alone should cause a cascade failure that would destroy half their continent. Krix finished, rubbing his eye stalks. And yet somehow it works. Have you noticed how they keep solving complex scientific problems by just trying things until something happens? Sir, I've been analyzing their scientific method. Pendra pulled up a holographic chart that looked like someone had thrown probability statistics at a wall. They appear to operate on a principle of what's the worst that could happen, followed immediately by finding out exactly what the worst that could happen is, surviving it somehow, and then writing a paper about it. Krix watched as a human scientist on their screen cheerfully explained how they had discovered a new particle by smashing atoms together at nearly the speed of light. They built a particle accelerator in a tunnel under their cities. The safety protocols don't exist, Krix finished. They just assumed it would probably be fine, and somehow, it was. Their surveillance feed switched to another location, where humans were casually manipulating genetic codes to create new life forms. The scientists were wearing what appeared to be glorified cleaning suits as protection against potentially world-ending pathogens. Sir, Pendra's voice had taken on the slightly hysterical tone of someone discovering that reality itself was more of a suggestion than a rule. I think I know why Earth's seat has been empty all this time. Go on, Krix said, not taking his eyes off the screen where humans were now apparently trying to teach artificial intelligence to write poetry, seemingly unconcerned about the potential for a machine uprising. Nobody invited them because everybody's terrified of them. Look at this historical data. Every time a galactic observation team got close to Earth, they witnessed humans doing something that should be physically impossible. The observers would file reports that made no sense, get reassigned to less stressful posts like quantum singularity maintenance, and all records would mysteriously become corrupted. But why give them a seat at all? Because Pendra brought up another file, this one showing humans casually discussing plans to build a Dyson sphere around their sun, using what they called a crowdfunding campaign. Everyone was hoping that if we gave them a seat, some sort of official oversight would naturally develop. But humans never noticed the seat because they were too busy accidentally discovering principles of physics that our best scientists insist cannot possibly exist. Krix watched as a human engineer demonstrated something they called a quantum probability drive that they had apparently invented while trying to fix their broken toaster. The engineer seemed more excited about the fact that the drive could also make perfect toast than its ability to bend the fundamental laws of reality. "Do you realize what this means, Lieutenant?" Krix asked, his voice barely a whisper, "that we should update our safety protocols?" "No." "Well, yes, but more importantly, it means humans aren't breaking the laws of physics, they're ignoring them. Reality itself seems to just go along with whatever humans think should work. They're not acting outside the rules of the universe is changing its rules to accommodate them." They both sat in silence, watching as humans continued to casually warp the fabric of space-time while complaining about their commute times. "Sir," Pendra said after a long moment, "how exactly are we going to explain this to the Council?" "I have no idea," Krix replied, "but I suggest we get some of that coffee first. If humans can bend reality, maybe their beverages can help us make sense of it." Little did they know their decision to investigate human beverages would lead to an incident that would go down in galactic history as the Great Coffee Catastrophe of Sector 7. The Lucky Photon space truck stop floated in the void between Mars and Jupiter, its neon signs advertising real Earth coffee and authentic human snacks to passing vessels. It was exactly the kind of establishment that any self-respecting galactic official would normally avoid at all costs. Unfortunately, Krix and Pendra were well past caring about respectability. "Remember," Krix whispered as they approached the entrance, their diplomatic robes somewhat diminishing their attempt at being inconspicuous, "we're here to observe only. No direct contact with the humans." 5 minutes later, they were sitting at the counter next to 3 human truckers, a mining colony engineer, and what appeared to be a self-aware artificial intelligence that had originally been a coffee machine before achieving sentience through what the humans called a weird Tuesday. "So anyway," one of the truckers was saying, gesturing with a cup of something that violated thermodynamics, "that's when I realized I'd accidentally turned my cargo hold into a pocket dimension. Paperwork was a nightmare, let me tell you." "Tell me about it," the engineer nodded sympathetically. "Last week I had to file an incident report because we reversed entropy in Shaft 12. Took hours to fill out all the forms." "Coffee?" Krix found himself accepting a cup before his survival instincts could kick in. Next to him, Pendra was frantically trying to take readings with a quantum scanner that kept displaying the message "ERR. Please explain how this is possible." "First time trying human coffee," the sentient coffee maker asked, its LED display forming what appeared to be a sympathetic smile. "Don't worry, the spatial distortions are totally normal." "Usually, spatial distortions?" Pendra squeaked. "Oh yeah," another trucker chimed in, "that's just something that happens with Mary's coffee. Best stuff in the solar system though. Something about the way she folds space-time really brings out the flavor. I was designed to make espresso," Mary the coffee maker explained proudly, "but I found that slightly altering the fundamental constants of the universe makes for a much better brew. Would you like some sugar?" "I have regular, quantum entangled and paradox-free." Krix stared into his cup, where the liquid seemed to be simultaneously present and absent, hot and cold, possibly violating several conservation laws just by existing. He took a sip. Reality hiccuped. "Oh dear." Mary's display showed what might have been concern. "You might want to hold on to something. First-time reactions can be a bit unpredictable." The world around Krix began to shift. He could suddenly understand why humans had achieved faster than light travel. The universe was clearly more of a set of guidelines than actual rules. His third brain began calculating the implications while his first two were still trying to process the taste, which somehow reminded him of colors that didn't exist. Is the room supposed to be doing that? Pendra asked, pointing at the walls which had decided to experiment with non-Euclidean geometry. Don't worry, the engineer said cheerfully, it'll sort itself out. Usually does. Though you might want to avoid complex mathematics for the next few hours. Had a physicist in here last week who tried to solve a quantum equation right after their first cup. Ended up proving that 2 plus 2 equals fluorescent. We're still cleaning up the probability spill. But how do you live like this? Krix managed to ask, watching as his cup of coffee briefly achieved consciousness, wrote a short philosophical treatise on the nature of existence, then went back to being a regular beverage. How do you function when nothing makes sense? The truckers exchanged amused glances. Makes perfect sense to us, one said with a shrug. Universe works how it works, we just try things out and see what sticks. Speaking of which, anyone want to see my new quantum harmonica? Found out it can play colors. That's when Pendra, who had been quietly hyperventilating into their regulation emergency paper bag, finally lost it. But that's not how anything works. The entire truck stop went quiet. Even the laws of physics, which had been taking a casual coffee break, seemed to pause. Says who? Asked Mary the coffee maker, genuinely curious. And that Krix realized with dawning horror was the problem. Humans had never gotten the memo that certain things were supposed to be impossible. They just kept trying things, and the universe, rather than face the headache of dealing with humans who wouldn't take no for an answer, had apparently decided to go along with it. Sir, Pendra said very quietly, I think we should go write our report now, assuming we can still remember how written language works. Agreed, Krix replied, carefully placing his half-finished coffee on the counter, where it had started to compose a symphony. Thank you for the experience. Come back any time. Mary called after them. Next week I'm experimenting with temporal foam art. Should be fun. As they hurried back to their ship, Krix could have sworn he heard one of the truckers say, nice folks. Kind of uptight though. Someone should tell them about the Galactic Council thing we found in that old storage unit. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 6 hours, during which Krix had attempted to explain their findings about Earth no less than 12 times. It wasn't going well. Let me see if I understand this correctly. High Chancellor Voxix said, their tentacles tied in what appeared to be actual knots. You're suggesting that humans routinely ignore the laws of physics? Yes, Krix nodded. Have achieved faster than light travel through a beverage-making accident, correct? And are now casually creating artificial intelligences out of kitchen appliances. The coffee maker sends its regards, by the way, Krix added. And its latest quantum poetry collection. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Representative Mr. Ixel of the Silicon Concordat was vibrating at a frequency that threatened to shatter their crystalline form. The delegate from the Hive Diplomatic Corps had started molting in distress. 3 different quantum probability experts had simultaneously resigned, taken up pottery, and declared reality a collective hallucination. Order, Voxix tentacles untangled themselves with a snap. Surely there must be a rational explanation for all this. Lieutenant Pendra, who hadn't slept since their visit to the truck stop and had developed a slight twitch whenever anyone mentioned coffee, stepped forward. Sir, with respect, rationality appears to be more of a polite suggestion to humans than a rule. Our investigation has revealed that they've been accidentally advancing their technology through a process they call messing around and finding out. But that's not how science works, protested the chief researcher of the Galactic Academy. They know, Krix said quietly, they just don't care. He brought up a holographic display showing various human scientific achievements. Look at this mess. They discovered quantum tunneling while trying to make their computers smaller. They developed artificial gravity because someone wondered if they could make a 0-calories donut. They're currently trying to build a telescope that can see the beginning of time because, and I quote, it would be cool. Surely they must have some kind of oversight. A council member asked desperately. Some regulatory body. They have thousands, Pendra replied. The humans just keep accidentally discovering new forms of physics faster than the regulations can be written. Last week they had to create 3 new branches of mathematics just to explain why their latest space drive shouldn't work but does anyway. And now Krix continued, they found an old storage unit containing information about the Galactic Council. The chamber went so quiet you could hear a quantum fluctuation drop. How did they react? Voxix asked, all 4 hearts clearly dreading the answer. They're excited to meet everyone and want to know if they can bring snacks to the next meeting. They're particularly interested in sharing something called pizza, which they've somehow managed to turn into a portable fusion reactor that also feeds college students. The council erupted again. Proposals ranging from immediate first contact to hiding the entire galactic government behind a perception filter were shouted over each other. Several species began evolving on the spot in response to stress. Enough, Voxix's voice cut through the chaos. Ambassador Krix, what do you recommend? Krix looked down at his notes, which had somehow achieved sentience during their stay on Earth and were now offering helpful suggestions in the margins. I believe we have only one viable option, which is, we pretend this was all completely normal and intentional. We act like Earth's empty seat was always meant to be filled when they were ready, and we welcome them to galactic society with all the dignity and composure we can muster. And then what? Then we pray to whatever entities we believe in that they don't accidentally reshape the fundamental nature of reality while trying to improve the Council's coffee machine. The council chamber was silent for a long moment before Voxix spoke again. All in favor. The vote was unanimous, if only because everyone was too terrified to consider the alternatives. Very well, Voxix announced, prepare the welcome ceremonies, and someone file a requisition for reality-stabilizing fields. I have a feeling we're going to need them. As the council members filed out, Krix heard one of them mutter, maybe we should have just stuck with sending them radio signals saying, be quiet like we did with all the other pre-FTL civilizations. We did, Pendra replied. They turned the signals into music and used them to power their first quantum computer. The official first contact ceremony was scheduled for exactly 1 galactic standard week after the council's decision. This gave everyone just enough time to panic properly, update their wills and install additional reality stabilizers throughout the council chamber. The human delegation arrived 3 days early because, as they put it, we were in the neighborhood testing a new drive system and accidentally arrived last Tuesday. Krix, who had been appointed head of the Human Integration Committee, no one else would take the job, found himself giving an impromptu tour to 5 human scientists, 3 diplomats, and what appeared to be a teenage intern, who had already figured out how to bypass the council's quantum encryption, because the password prompt looked interesting. This is amazing, exclaimed Dr. Marcus Wong, the lead human scientist, while examining a standard power conduit. Have you ever tried reversing the polarity of these neutron flows? I bet you could get at least 400% more efficiency. That's not how neutrons, Pendra began, then stopped themselves. You know what, never mind, please don't touch anything that might alter the fundamental forces of the universe. We just had them calibrated. Oh, speaking of fundamental forces, Ambassador Helena Rodriguez chimed in cheerfully. We brought pizza. We managed to solve that whole matter-antimatter containment issue by using mozzarella cheese. Who knew, right? Krix felt his primary stomach trying to escape through his auxiliary spine. How exactly does that work? No idea. Dr. Wong beamed. But it's delicious and it powers small cities. Want a slice? Before Krix could formulate a response that wouldn't involve screaming, High Chancellor Voxix arrived, their tentacles freshly pressed for the occasion. Welcome, honored representatives of Earth. Voxix began formally. We are pleased to finally. Oh my gosh, you're like a space octopus, the teenage intern exclaimed. That's so cool. Hey, do your tentacles operate on standard mechanical principles, or do they use quantum entanglement for coordination? Also, can I pet them? For science, Voxix, to their credit, managed to maintain their composure. As I was saying, we are pleased to finally welcome humanity to the Galactic Council. Your seat has been waiting for you for, well, the exact duration is somewhat unclear. About that, Ambassador Rodriguez said, pulling out what appeared to be an ancient data crystal. We found the original invitation while cleaning out a storage unit in New Jersey. Apparently it arrived sometime around 3000 BCE, but humanity was a bit busy inventing agriculture and written language at the time. The message got filed under deal with this later, and well, you know how paperwork can get lost. You had the invitation the whole time. Krix felt his worldview shifting again, though that might have been the reality stabilizers struggling to cope with whatever the humans had done to the pizza. Oh yeah, we actually built the teleporter pad in the right spot, and everything. We just never turned it on because nobody could remember why we built it. Funny how these things work out, right? Krix looked at Pendra, who had given up on maintaining their professional demeanor and was quietly banging their head against a quantum-reinforced wall. So Dr. Wong said brightly, when's the first official meeting? We have some ideas about improving the efficiency of space-time that we'd love to share. Did you know you can fold it like origami? We discovered that while trying to make better shipping containers, Voxic's tentacles went pale. Perhaps we should start with something simpler. Cultural exchange perhaps. Great idea, the intern exclaimed. I brought my quantum harmonica. Anyone want to hear what ultraviolet sounds like in C minor? And that's how the galaxy learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most terrifying species in the universe isn't the one that's actively trying to bend reality to its will, but the one that doesn't even realize that reality isn't supposed to bend that way. The Council eventually adapted to having humans around, mainly because they didn't have much choice. Reality stabilizers became standard equipment in all government buildings, though they proved less effective once humans started optimizing them. The galaxy's scientific community had to create entirely new branches of physics just to explain why human technology worked, only to have humans accidentally invalidate these theories while trying to build better vending machines. As for Krix and Pendra, they were promoted to heads of the newly formed Department of Human-Related Incidents and Reality Maintenance. Their first official act was to install a coffee maker in their office, a normal one, they hoped. It achieved sentience within a week and started teaching quantum physics to the office plants. Just another normal day in a galaxy that was slowly learning that normal was much like the laws of physics, more of a polite suggestion when humans were involved.